Appreciate it. Usually it's tough acts to follow because of things people are saying. Also, I noticed everyone had amazing hair that came up here earlier. Starting with you two guys, talking about you guys back there. Great hair. Rachel's an awesome attorney, by the way, too, guys. I actually did work with her. And the Urbanoids people, that's people you'll be looking forward to their products. So I'll also help promote and hopefully get a bunch of those products at some point. So I'm just going to really quickly read through the questions that I'm going to talk about. So let's see, Michael, well drafted. I appreciate it. There's a bunch of things in here. Some things Michael might not even know that I do, but are relevant to this discussion too. But the event title is "Could Pot Open the Door to End the Drug War?" And then there's a series of questions after that. Will smoking a joint at a concert or bar soon be permitted? That's an easy one. It's already, I mean...
Just say yes.
Yeah, well...
Been doing it for years.
It's whether or not it'll be legal, right, exactly. So what will the impact of legalizing marijuana be on the drug war overall? How has legalization changed public perception? What other potentially illegal drugs are being studied? Can ketamine cure depression? Can MDMA save your marriage? Can ayahuasca save you from addiction?
Yeah.
All very good questions. So starting out, so I'm an attorney in Colorado. I grew up in southeast Denver, I-25 in Hamden. I went to high school in Aurora. It's a great place for whoever was talking shit there earlier. I think it's Centennial now. Right.
Fuck Aurora!
What was that?
That was you. That's right. But yeah, so maybe I'm a unique speaker here because our entire thing has been taxing and regulating. That is how we message what we do. We talk about how we tax and regulate marijuana. Now, a lot of people have a big problem with that. I also am one of 2 campaigns in history that has successfully raised a new tax on a product in Colorado. I'm not talking about Amendment 64, I'm talking about Proposition AA, also known as the worst campaign I've ever been a part of. But that was the campaign that put the 50% excise, sales tax and 10% excise tax. So I am very much a liberty-minded person, as well as many people in here, and I've had, fortunately, the time to spend with Michael and other folks, but taxing and regulating is the message we use because it's a message that people get, and it's something that we do. So I don't want to get up here and not give full disclosure that I have raised a massive amount of taxes in Colorado, 100 million plus, I think is what we're at right now. I know, boo. So again, the worst campaign ever. It was terrible. I was like, absolute nightmare being a part of it. But it was at the same time, it was something the voters wanted, and it's a transition point. We need to transition marijuana from a completely unregulated market into a market where over time I think it will become less and less regulated. But it is what it is, and it is the way to get things done on this issue. So again, it's just a full disclosure moment. I hope for some very challenging questions on these things because I felt shitty about it. So I appreciate you guys making me feel shitty about it too. Basically the question is, when will prohibition enter? Is this a crack in the drug war, a crack in the concept that governments, should not control what we decide to do with our bodies on the weekend or a weeknight or a weekday or during lunch at work today or whatever? These are personal decisions. These are choices people make, and the government establishing what morality should be, and particularly when they're choosing a substance that's objectively less harmful than what hopefully the waitress will be bringing me in a second here, a double tall Tito's and soda that I ordered earlier. The concept is it's a mind shift, and I think that when I think about it from the perspective of how does this affect the drug war and how does this affect how we view substances, we've had one substance that alcohol sits here, and it's like this is what people use when they want to recreate or when they want to just go out and have a good time or relax or do whatever. We've now put a second substance next to it. People talk about tobacco and what's a drug and all these other things, but if you think about marijuana and alcohol next to each other, we're talking about the idea that we now have 2 things, which obviously begs the question, is there 3 things? Are there 4 things? There's actually probably several hundred things that I've tried that you guys, might consider trying at some point too, but we are trying to change the entire perception of what is acceptable human behavior. And that takes, it really takes a fundamental win, and Washington and Colorado had that win in 2012. We're now seeing a broad expansion of, legalization initiatives elsewhere. We're seeing things in Ohio where, the former Backstreet Boy member and some of his friends got together, 10 of them, to constitutionally amend their constitution to create an immediate monopoly or oligopoly over marijuana. We're seeing the door is swung wide open in terms of what's going to happen next, but it's unclear, how it's going to go. I think inevitably we win. What does winning mean? Is the perhaps question that's not on the list that Michael put together. As this ends, does this become a handout to large corporations and or does it give free market opportunities for people like the Urbanwoods folks that are small startups? Sorry, is that better?
Yeah.
Thanks, man. So there's a lot of really fundamental questions that we're dealing with. Right now I talk about, the things I'm doing. The reason I'm in a suit and tie is not because I usually wear this, but because I came from the Denver City Council. Because right now we're dealing with a situation where Ashley Kilroy, who's the head of the marijuana policy, Denver Marijuana Policy Office, one of the mayor's staffers, has determined in her infinite wisdom over at a cocktail party that there's enough marijuana in Denver, and all her friends think so. And therefore we should put a moratorium and stop all new business from starting for 2 years. And that is right. And it's crazy, right? When I say, she's like, we heard from the Denver economist who said there's enough marijuana in Denver. There are, everyone agrees, and he said it, and I was like, well, first of all, he didn't say it, and second of all, what he said was, I don't know anything about this, and she told me to come up here and talk about this, and I was totally caught off guard, and I was like, yeah, I believe the market should set what the right amount of marijuana is. And not only that, I think that if you're going to talk about we're going to regulate this new industry, I fully plan on the bar over there being 2/3 of marijuana products in the next 20 years. Yeah. And so when that happens, we're going to be able to mimic some of the very same effects of alcohol, all these other things, and and have much less harmful long-term effects, decrease healthcare costs, so we don't need that single-payer system that you're so passionately against, as am I. But these concepts are mind-blowing to people who I talk to about ambition about it. They're like, weed's still illegal here. People are being arrested every day, and even if you don't get arrested, you get a ticket. This is something that will fundamentally impact you for the rest of your life. When you're applying to join the bar, when you're trying to get into graduate school, your student loans. I mean, these are everyone. I think I would consider it a serious and not a hyperbolic statement that anyone who has any marijuana conviction or frankly any drug conviction, but marijuana specifically, for a nonviolent drug offense is a political prisoner and is in a position where they will always have this thing following around until we get rid of it entirely. And so we can do that one of two ways. We do it by legalizing, normalizing, and then saying, why would we keep similar policies in place, right? Or, we just simply prove that this is a much better alternative to the existing status quo, and get over the fact that every marijuana user is not, the wino in the gutter with the brown bag. That's how we're pictured by the Ashley Kilroys and other folks in the world. They're highly functioning and very successful marijuana users. I imagine there's one or two in this room, and I know there's two at least, for sure. 3, 4. We'll do hang.
I'm a highly
This guy, I think he's a cop. I think you're a cop. You're 2 exactly.
I'm not highly functional.
I'm just kidding. And he's not highly functioning either. So anyways, I want to leave it open to questions, but I also want to say too, we work with an organization called the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies. MAPS. Yeah. I should know that way better. Rick Doblin, who's the executive director, has been a good friend, strong supporter of us for a long time. MDMA research, our law firm dabbles in MDMA. And we also do some MDMA legal.
What a coincidence!
And the study that's going on in Boulder right now, which is going to be game-changing, actually involves PTSD, not saving your marriage, but PTSD. And we've had a massively high success rate in some of the initial trials for treatment-resistant PTSD patients using MDMA. And it's not, here's your MDMA, go take 10 pills and whatever, club, get whatever. So it's like, it actually involves psychotherapy, and it involves like a process, and it's a really exciting study. The same thing is true with psilocybin. Psilocybin is being used with MAPS. MAPS is doing studies for some very interesting stuff. There's really, really, really challenging things about studying marijuana. It's not that hard as a Schedule I substance. It's much easier to study a lot of the other Schedule I substances. So fortunately, we're getting some really good research on psilocybin for PTSD, psilocybin for end-of-life treatment, psilocybin for marriage counseling, psilocybin for, I forget all of the other things, but they're, LSD for cluster headaches. We have like a fundamental change happening in terms of how we approach psychotherapy and psychiatrics, and it's a really exciting time, and these things all go together. But I'm gonna open up for questions in a minute here, but the ultimate question, is this the start of the end of the drug war? The answer is yes. And there's a crack in the dam, or whatever you want to call it, but inevitably minds are changing and people are starting to be told the truth. Today at the Denver City Council, they said the perception of harm amongst kids has been reducing when it comes to marijuana. And we got to be really concerned about that, because the perception of harm is directly related to the amount of use. And my response was, that's because we've been lied to for the last 40 years. And kids are smart. And if the perception of harm is reducing, that's because the actuality of harm is not what they told us it was. And so we have to come very strong and reject arguments that you really have to put yourself out there at times, and you have to say, I'm not doing this. Look, there's business opportunities. There are, societal change moments. There are a bunch of things happening. But people have to just embrace the fact that they're a marijuana user. They have to say, look, I'm a highly functioning person, and I use marijuana. It should not be something that I'm punished for. I should have the opportunity to use marijuana in a bar like this, pursuant to the Clean Indoor Air Act, which will amend to not include marijuana smoke.
Yes.
And have really just create a space for a fundamental change in thinking. But Denver is an old guard town. There's a lot of people that that at their cocktail parties talk about how much marijuana there is, and and there's too much, and what's happened in the city. Did you see that the U.S. News and World Report, we were the #1 city for people to live in America, as announced today? But we could have been #1 plus, if not for marijuana. Right? That's the kind of shit I hear all the time. Well, it could have been better. We could have been even, our economy would have been even better than #1. It's embrace it, enjoy it responsibly. I will ask all of you. But also, if anyone wants to get involved, I tell people, people that are I want to get in the marijuana industry, but it's too late. It's not too late. In 1 year, you could become a mogul in this industry, or a total, the awesome flame out, you did something crazy and everyone hates you now, but you're a legend. That could happen in 6 months, for sure. 3 months, possibly even 2. But anybody wants to get involved, the blockchain technology and the idea of the possibilities with Bitcoin, blockchain, and other things that exist in this space, and the ability to use it in a way that where we have this sort of bully pulpit is incredible. And it is an invitation to any of you. Call me anytime. These guys have my number. I'm much easier to get a hold of than some people possibly might think. But if you know Michael, you're a friend of mine, and Justin too now. And if I can do anything or answer any questions, I'd be happy to. And sorry I didn't get to everything. Ketamine's awesome. Ketamine at the international level, ketamine is the most important issue and one of the craziest issues you'd ever possibly understand. And
More into that.
what's that?
Yeah,
About ketamine?
Yeah.
Has anyone here done ketamine? So he did it last night. And I
brush your teeth on
am
ketamine? It's
definitely
amazing.
right. Yeah,
It's amazing.
brush your teeth here. I'm not a ketamine expert in terms of use, psychopharmacological effects and other things, although I am a non-certified researcher. But the thing about it is that ketamine can be used. Ketamine is a substance that is banned at the international level in many places, and it finds itself in a strange schedule. And because of that, it can be used as a battlefield anesthetic. It can be used in very important ways in Africa and in places where there's crazy stuff happening, and it's not allowed. And it's not allowed because the United States, under the Convention on Narcotic Drugs, years and years ago, the United States created this treaty system through the United Nations, and marijuana is a part of it. Ketamine's a part of it. There's a bunch of different things going on, but the United States has used that to put their thumb down on many nations around the world. And when you talk about issues, they're like, oh yeah, you're the marijuana guy from Colorado, that's fine. I'm going to Vienna actually to the Convention on Narcotic Drugs meeting in 2 weeks. But when you talk about these issues, and marijuana seems petty, or it's it's simply a tool. What I tell them, it's a tool for every country should be allowed to make their own drug policies. We have an international treaty obligation not to legalize marijuana. The United States legalized it, and so now it puts a crack in this entire treaty system because we can't credibly say that we didn't violate this treaty. Uruguay blatantly violated it, but the United States is in violation as well. But that allows countries and other places to have needle injection clinics, to legalize drugs, to do what Portugal's done in terms of how they've approached decriminalization, what Switzerland's done in terms of allowing actual heroin to be used. To give to people instead of methadone and some of these other, which tend to be destructive, sort of alternatives. And ketamine's one of them. Ketamine is something that's there that's like a very, very important thing to a lot of these countries. And, if the United States can break the treaty, that gives all these other countries the opportunity to at least say,
get rid of the treaty.
Oh, we're working on it. So the question was, how can we get rid of the treaty? So the nice thing about the treaty is that, you guys look like constitutional scholars. So the way that the United States interpreted, I'll use Justice Scalia, dearly departed. He interpreted the Constitution based upon the four corners of the document. That is how the United States interpreted the Convention on Narcotic Drugs and subsequent drug treaties until we passed legalization in Colorado and Washington. And then we became the ACLU of international drug policy, which is that it's a living, breathing document. And that actually, maybe there is flexibility inside the conventions, and that it's not a strict illegality under international law for us to do this. So the way that we do it, there's a meeting in New York in April 19th to 21st. It's the special session of the United Nations to talk about this issue. They'll sit around and talk about words and change an S here and make something plural and then not plural. Nothing will get done. But outside that meeting, there will be funny half word. Yeah. So, but outside that meeting, very serious conversations about the future of the international drug war will be had, and it will be a very important, an incredibly important meeting that's going to shift the entire dialogue. And it really started with Washington, Colorado, and then Uruguay. But all these other things, what we need to do is we need to say this is. The United States, Colorado, it's a local government argument. I have to make sure Denver made it okay for us to have dispensaries here, so that we could follow the state law, which allowed us to have dispensaries, so we could go against the federal government, which we don't think has any idea what the hell's going on in terms of how we address marijuana policy. It's the same argument for different countries and different drugs. They say, look, you in Geneva or in Vienna or in New York in your offices, you don't know what our local issues are. You don't know. We want to handle heroin addiction. We want to handle, recreational use of marijuana. We want to handle all these other drugs in the way that we think is appropriate. And you shouldn't be telling us from your ivory towers, literally made out of ivory in some cases, that this is the better way for us to have a drug policy. And it's the same argument that we're making. This is a local government, small government argument. So, questions?
Wait, first of all, give it up for Christian. Give it up.